This is so weird. Like, so welcome back to the channel. Um, Today we're going to be having our episode 2 of our podcast thingy while Mika looks at his book. And we're going to be digging deeper into an idea that was previously mentioned. It was the balance in relationships. Because I thought that it would be very interesting, and recent things I've heard from all my friends have kind of inspired this type of discussion. So, yeah, let's get into what we're going to talk about today.
Haven't really used my resin at all. Like, at all.
Well, for me, I just need to do some ley lines, so we can do that first.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do ley line then.
Okay, just follow where I go. So, the imbalance in relationships. I'm sure this is something that you're very familiar with.
Okay,
And it's
that
also
feels like
something
an
that,
insult.
I mean, it's not like really an insult. I feel like it's just kind of like telling, like, you've actually been through this. You've actually been through this particular issue, and you have more knowledge, experience on it. And for me, like, I've also like experienced some of this in my first relationship, which I often reference as like a relationship that I wasn't very happy in back then. It just felt like, you know, for that relationship in specific, I was the one to put in all, or if not like most of the effort, and I would always accommodate the other person's needs and like be like, hey, like, if this is what you want to do, then let's go do that, and if this is what you don't like, I'll change that. And like sometimes that can be very taxing on you. That can be like a lot of stress. That can be something that is gonna actually make you not want to be with that person, which is eventually what happened. After like giving it a couple chances, I was like, you know what, this is way too much for me. I don't think this is working out. Let's establish something first. What is a balanced relationship?
I think that actually coincides with what I actually discussed with my therapist yesterday, because I was just in a very confused state of, like, trying not to lose yourself in a relationship while also be able to accomplish like I don't know, open and honest communication and actually solve through some issues that you might face in your relationship. Because, well, to be honest, nothing is ever perfect. It's always like a working, like you working with the other person to trying to, I don't know, figure something out that like fits for both of you. And I think it's not necessary that when you do something, especially when you're in a relationship, like when you do something for the other person, you have to expect them to like do something in return. That's not how you seek the balance. And it's actually pretty easy to see if you guys have like a balanced relationship, whether you are still able to keep like a healthy connection with the person, whether you still are able to have your own space, and whether you guys have like an actual working communication, because sometimes it just feels like you're talking but you guys are like your conversation doesn't really go anywhere other than just like normal small talks or talking about like ideas that he would like to like talk about. So I think
Right.
it's really easy to see like once you sort of have more experience. But again, like, it is just something that everyone goes through. There are definitely like times where people feel like they're putting in so much work but they're really not getting anything from their partner.
It's not about like, okay, I give you X amount of effort, and you have to respond with exactly X amount of effort. It's about wanting to like treat your partner with the amount of respect they've given you, without them like, you know, prompting you to, or without feeling like it's forced. You do it because you feel like that's what you're supposed to do. It's not, I'm doing it because this is a relationship obligation. Because
Yeah,
when it
because
comes,
if you keep
there's a difference.
thinking
There's a difference.
about that, you kind of grow tired of it. and
Yeah,
then you'd be
when
like,
you think about it
I'm just gonna
in a
go
way of an
with
obligation,
you.
you're not actually enjoying the relationship. It's very obvious because when you think there's an obligation, it's kind of like when you're going to your job that you don't really like, but you're just doing it because you feel like you have to. And like you feel like you need it to like survive or to lead a better life. In that sense, it's like also like in a relationship where like you're thinking, hey, I'm doing this because I need this person in my life. I'm doing this because I need a significant other in my life. I'm not doing this because I actually appreciate the other person. And I think like that is what I would establish as a balanced relationship. It's basically when both parties are willing to give a similar, it may not be exactly the same, but similar amount of effort towards each other and towards this relationship that they're developing. Anyways, first off, we need to establish what we're doing next because that was on my resume. So, and I vividly remember this one time where I was like, I'm gonna keep referencing my first relationship because that's the one where I feel like
The most
the
traumatic one?
theme, yes, but also the theme of imbalance was the most prominent and something that I can always draw on as a reference for maybe like a potential future relationship. So
I see.
for me, it's more like
Um,
I
mhm.
remember this one time where I was having like I think it was a text conversation with this other person, and I was trying to voice my concerns and being like, I feel like you don't really care as much anymore, and I feel like I'm giving this amount of effort and you're not appreciating it. And I think the example that I used at the time was that I prepared this like birthday surprise party for him when it was his birthday, and
Mhm.
I remember very clearly that after that day, he was texting me being like, he was disappointed and he was
Mm.
unhappy with what I've prepared. And I'm not like saying this in a way to be like, oh, I'm just like salty because he didn't like what I had prepared. It's more that when your significant other is doing this for you, and they've planned it for a long time. Like I've told him that I planned it for a long time because I had to like get his other closer friends' schedules just to make sure that
Yeah.
at least some of his friends could show up and surprise him. And I also
Mm.
paid for like accommodation in like the hotel for one night, and also like just like have like an overnight party, right? And
Mhm.
so all of that apparently was not enough for him, which even now looking back, I feel like it should have been. Like, it's first of all, I've never keep in mind I've never really planned this kind of party for anyone, and I've never
Mhm.
planned this kind
Yeah,
of
not
like
even me. I'm so.
exactly. And so like I'm first of all, I don't have any point of reference for this because I had no help, no suggestions, anything. And the part of the reason was that I wanted this to become from the heart. I don't want it to be like super planned out in a sense that like, I'm like, just asking as friends, what does this person like? Because
Mm.
if I did that and it was like the cheat code to making this person like, enjoy the day with me or enjoy the night with me, it feels not genuine. And for me, like being genuine with my partner is very, very important. And it's less about balance in a sense and more about just appreciation and basic respect. I think
Yeah.
there's a further differentiation to be made between basic manners and respect and balance. Although it does correlate because it's kind of like how the bigger category is balance in a relationship, but the smaller category under it is about basic respect and understanding. At that time, I just felt very disappointed in the other person because I felt like, I actually tried. I tried my best to make this a special day for you. And not only were you like unhappy like during the day, like during the time that was happening, but afterwards you came back to me and basically told me that I failed like a test or something. That kind of comes
Mhm.
back to when we were talking about balance earlier, like not wanting the efforts to feel like a piece of homework. I felt like in that moment that it was a piece of homework and I was being graded and I somehow failed, even though his own friends were messaging me saying like, he was like being unfair to me and that my efforts were already very nice and like stuff like that.
Clear skies
When your
can do
own
nothing
close
to rid
friends
the
are
brilliance of
telling
lightning.
you that you're
Divine
wrong,
bolts
you
can
really need
strike
to start
even in
thinking
the
about
absence
it.
of rain.
Like you really need to start thinking about
See that tree?
where your judgment lies.
Wait.
And I'm not
You
saying
want
that I
to
did
see?
absolutely
Right now, I wish
perfect,
I
but
was
I'm
sitting
saying
at the
that
top
like
of a tree.
the fact that I
Demonstration
went through so
flower
many
petals,
hoops
cider in hand.
to do this should at least be appreciated to some extent. Like it's okay for you to tell me that like, okay, maybe like, oh, next time you should do this more. But the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't say it that way. He just told me that it was just bad and he was disappointed.
And he just devalued the whole like thing and just told you like
Exactly.
I don't like it.
It kind of also reminded me the fact that you should never let your efforts be diminished to like an
Mm-hmm.
unfair extent, because that
Yeah.
kind of also disturbs that kind of balance that you hope to establish, because now that your efforts have been minimized and
Mm.
it seems like it's less than before, even though you're doing the same amount, you now have to do more to compensate for what the other person perceives as not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like a snowball, right? It starts very small and then it rolls and rolls and it becomes bigger and bigger until the issue is too big for you guys to ignore, and that's when the bigger problems start to come about. And you start to question the relationship.
Play you another tune, but it
That
really
is something
isn't
that
that
is just going to be not very fun to experience at the very least. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
my piece to this.
I mean it's like very true. It's tough, you know.
Yeah, it definitely is. Do you have any like specific examples like what I talked about where you feel like, oh, this is like a perfect example of the imbalance that I experienced?
Well, I think for any of my previous relationships, 'cause I've been in more than one at this point, I definitely think that it is a very common theme, considering that I'm a very accommodating person. Like, usually
Right.
I'm willing to do a lot for my partner, as
Mhm.
long as they ask, and, like, I will do as much as I see fit.
Right.
And that, well,
Oh, I just
that
died. It's
usually
fine.
causes
It's
a
fine.
problem.
Right.
But one most recent example is that me and my, well, ex-boyfriend was trying to like maintain like a sort of like long distance relationship. We're in
Right.
two different cities, and um, it's like a bus ride of 2 hours or a train ride
Mhm.
sometimes
Mhm.
to his place or to a
Uh-huh.
city. And before we actually started like the school year, I
Mhm.
was asking him, like, do you have any plans for if we were to go long distance? And, how would you envision it to be? And so
Right.
at that time, he keeps telling me that, like, he doesn't really know because he had been in a really terrible situation with his ex-girlfriend, which also happens to be long distance. And so he doesn't really feel that comfortable doing long distance in general. And I was like, that's okay. So, like, what do you think you like propose to do? Like, do we break up after the summer ends, or do you like want to just be friends again? And he was feeling really conflicted, and so
Mhm.
I had to give him a lot of ultimatums to pressure that answer out of him, pretty much.
Right. Right. That's
And
wow. That's
eventually I
intense. Yeah.
did, because I think at that point we still have enough love for each other. So he eventually, under a lot of pressure from my side, he did sort of give me a very generic and general outline of what it might look like. And most of the execution is pretty much on my part. So I proposed the idea of, like, I'll come see him on the weekends, and, like, he can come over because I pretty much figure out how my living situation for the school year is going to be like pretty soon. And so, like, I didn't really have to worry about that. He haven't really got his shit figured out, to be honest.
Right.
Apologize for my language. But, so he was just being really, like, I would say, like, not really willing to participate in that conversation. And then later on, it kind of, like, spawns into a bigger problem when we actually
Mhm.
have to go through the long distance, like actually doing it. So for the most part, I was the one who was visiting him every weekend, and it was also like on top of other reasons as well, which I wouldn't go into too much detail of it because it was really complicated. But
Right, right.
for the 7 months that we were actually doing the quote unquote long distance, I would say 70 to 80% of the time I would go to his place
Right.
to visit him. And I was the one who was like, we should do more things. We should like
Yeah.
go out for, lunch when we actually see each other, like make us feel like we're actually still dating instead of just, like uh I think the word I used was hooking up at that time because it really just felt like we just see each other on the weekends and we do whatever like couples are doing and
Right,
then we
right.
kind of say goodbye and then like we still text while we're not together, but like slowly kind of feel like he's more like he's not as engaging as like he was before. Like you can see that he's not putting as much effort and he kind of requires more alone time for himself. And I
Mm.
think that was sort of where the imbalance started,
Right.
like with the distance and everything, and then it turns into he was being like quite avoidant of the relationship, and he sort of like got scared of actually thinking about the problem or actually doing anything about it. And I was the one who was like putting in the work and setting my foot down and be like, here is what we're gonna do. And he was just following my lead and pretty much just, I don't know. I wouldn't say take it for granted, but just enjoying the other person's like putting in the work and like pretty much. And it's kind of similar to your situation, but obviously yours, like was a one-time thing, and mine kind of lasted for like uh half a year.
Yeah, I
So
get that. I get that. Yeah. I hear what you're saying, first of all, about the whole traveling ordeal because like obviously I haven't been in a long distance relationship where it required me to travel because like mine ended before like the person went long distance, but still I get that. I remember also you were telling me about that while it was happening, and every time you'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to see this person," and then it would be like, "Oh, I gotta take this like long bus ride to see this person," and every time when I would hear that, I'd be like, "Okay, it's one of two things." Number one, both of you are very committed and very happy to see each other, and that's why, like, oh, okay, like maybe, okay, like this week, you're going there. Next week, he's going to wherever you live, and I thought that was the situation at first because it seemed like that, it seemed like that on the surface where it was like, okay, well, everyone's happy, and like you're just like taking turns, right? And it just happens to be the day where you're going to wherever he lives. um it just happens to be that day, right? It just happens to be it. and
yeah.
then and then like that's what that was like what I kind of built into my own mind, where like when I was thinking about your situation with this person. But
Mhm.
clearly that was not it. It seems that this person was not nearly giving back the same amount of effort that you were putting in. And that's
Yeah.
something that like that's part of the reason why I wanted to just like talk about this and see what we thought like what a balanced relationship looks like, because it's hard to establish sometimes. We there's no like, obviously, let's get one thing out of the way first. There's no objective way
Mhm.
of looking at this. There's no like, oh, this is what it looks like, and if your relationship does not look like that, then it is
Oh
imbalanced.
yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
Everyone has to like
because like
bring the
I
relationship
think
forward.
it's a collaborative effort between you and your partner, just like kind of deciding, oh, this is what we require, this is what this person wants, this is what the other party wants, like that's what I would say is like establishing balance would look like. And definitely sometimes that can be difficult, definitely sometimes the process can be very like complicated because everyone is like very dynamic. We're human beings, we're not going to be all the same, right? Um, it's let's we're straying a little bit here, but let's get back to the main topic. I think it's like what I said. When you're talking about these imbalances, at first you're going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to be the one to like work extra hard to make it work," right? You're going to be like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I will put in the effort. I'm willing to do this because I really like or love being with this person." And so I can fix this. That would be like the mindset that even my friend today was talking about, that I don't personally agree with it because I've seen so many relationships fall apart because of this. And including my
Yeah.
own, of course. But like, it's just when there's already imbalance, the solution to me is not to just overcompensate. Because like when you overcompensate, there is a very high chance that the other person takes that for granted
Mhm.
and just kind of gives up further, like let's go further of this relationship, and yet
Mm.
you're the one that's
I
like
mean, because he
suffering.
doesn't have to do anything, and he still reaps all the benefits. So why wouldn't you?
Exactly. Exactly. So like with the other person being like this, it's very hard for you to like recover from this sort of
Mm,
like overcommitment to this other person. And for that, I think that mainly what I want to bring out with asking you this question is that when you're giving too much effort, when you're overcompensating because you feel like that will fix things, let's just say, for in my opinion, 90% of the time that is not the solution. The solution, I personally believe, is to bring out all the root problems and talk about it. Even if you can't identify the root problems immediately, like at the time of like maybe talking or whatever, it's at least beneficial to talk about what are your current problems. What is the thing that is right in front of you that's like, okay, this is blocking me from having the relationship I want or I deserve. Sometimes, only sometimes, it is on your end. Like you could do more to make this like process smoother of whatever problem you're experiencing. That does happen
mm,
sometimes. But in this situation where what my friend was telling me, I don't feel like that's the situation. I felt that I was hearing so many things that were lining up with your experience with your ex. And so I was like, that alarm was like ringing in my brain. I was like, no,
yeah.
no, don't go down this path. But at the end of the day, he told me that, like, he stated very clearly that he's gonna make more of an effort to try to make this work. But he does keep
Mm,
in mind what I said, and he said, like, if it does happen one more time, he will start to consider the place at which they're at in the relationship and whether he should end things. So I
yeah.
am really happy that he at least take that into consideration. Excuse me, I have to
Mm,
defeat the suspicious treasure hoarders.
Commodities back and forth.
What I
yeah.
wanted to
Step
really
across Leroy,
express
stay a while.
while talking
Mm,
about
Food is
this
where
really
many
big
things
topic
come to
of
settle.
imbalance in relationships, and we discussed many like smaller factors and smaller parts and categories of it, is that it's a
How's
collaborative
Memphis
effort.
wine taste
And I
the
really
same as
hope
I remember?
that like people in relationships can see how important communication is, because it's something
mm,
that I personally am very big on. If I choose to date someone, I really want to make it clear that if you have an issue, talk about it. Of course, when you're ready, but still talk about it eventually. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until that like little piece of snowball has become a gigantic one that can literally crush your bones. Don't wait until that moment, okay? Because
yeah.
this collaborative effort only works with two people behind the wheel and not one. So
Mm,
that's what I wanted to bring up. And I guess that is a good point to kind of pause our discussion on this part of relationships. Um,
yeah.
it was great really experiencing this again. I think it's a very nice time to just kind of explore our thoughts, and the time really flies by, right? And so
Yeah.
it's really nice to talk about it. And next time we will talk more on relationships, but maybe not romantic ones. We'll think about it. We'll think about maybe
We'll
friendships or
see. We'll see.
something else, or maybe we'll experience some. We'll explore something new next time as well. But I really like this video format. I love making it. And I've definitely received feedback that it's actually pretty enjoyable to just watch in the background, and that's what I wanted to aim for because I like to consume this content on a daily basis where people are not necessarily like focusing that much on the gameplay. Like just now I was just running around the world, like doing some like world things and just like picking up some loot while talking about this. It's more chill,
Yeah.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
just nicer in general to like relax to. It's not something that's as intense as like a showcase, like the character showcases I've uploaded. And so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's been really nice, and I guess we'll see
Good roll.
you all on
Alright,
episode 3,
maybe
which
I'll
is
take
going to be
one
coming
more
up
day off
probably in
and
the next
knock out
week.
the
So
rest
yeah,
of the
thank
work
you all for
list I was leading
watching.
up to it.
Like and subscribe, hit the bell, all of that. See you soon. Bye bye.